Hello there. While the UK government goes pedal to the metal for net zero, the Dutch Electricity Grid Authority is issuing a stark warning. Now, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe, click the little bell, select all, and then like and comment below. The UK government has today published an independent net zero review called Mission Zero, written by Tory MP and former Energy Minister Chris Skidmore. And it's all about net zero incentives, putting net zero at the heart of planning, energy efficient homes, and using infrastructure to unlock net zero, with the prospect of new gas boilers being totally banned by 2030. Now this is 2023, and while we are being extolled to do more and more net zero, one government body is sending out a warning. But not a UK government body, but the electricity grid operator in the Netherlands called TenneT. According to the Reuters news agency, TenneT is warning that there could be electricity shortages in the Netherlands by 2030. That's only 7 years away. And the cause? The increased use of electricity and the shutting down of coal, gas and nuclear energy sources throughout Europe, while placing ever heavier reliance on weather-dependent energy sources such as wind and solar. And TenneT warns that domestic energy supplies will largely be enough to meet demands until 2025, 2 years away. DutchNews.nl reports, "The reason for the looming crisis is twofold," TenneT said. On the one hand, demand for electricity is increasing as people switch away from fossil fuels. On the other, less electricity is being generated from sources which can be adapted quickly when demand increases, such as coal and gas. And the Dutch grid operator said, "It is therefore crucial that action is taken to make sure the market remains flexible on both the demand and the supply side." While its chief operating officer, Maarten Abbenhaus, said, "The aim to achieve the climate goals with reduced dependency on fossil fuels will only be realistic with strong European cooperation. This raises new challenges that will require more and more attention in the coming years." And TenneT wants to see greater development of electricity storage facilities and more connections with the UK and Scandinavian electricity grids. So I assume from that, the hope would be that if the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing in the Netherlands, it will be sunny and windy enough in the UK or Scandinavia. And that it's windy and sunny enough to provide power for everyone while keeping the, at present non-existent, electricity storage facilities topped up. All in the next 2 years. Now that is not national energy security, that's energy interdependence. Basically UK-EU interdependence. How very wef-minded of them. Now, going back to the Skidmore report, he, like many others, reduces this all down to some sort of race to net zero and a race to beat everyone else to net zero, claiming it will be a huge economic boost to our economy. "We must keep racing and ignore everything else," the eco-zealots screech. But everything on the real life and common sense side screams at me that we need to slow this process down markedly or risk crashing our own and the global economy. Unless that's the plan, of course. Well, we received another interesting question on our answer phone system from Norman, and it's directly related to the last item.
Hi, Joe. My name's Norman Smith, and I just got a basic question, and that is, this poor doddery old fool is still having problems with the term net zero. Can you tell me, please, exactly what that means? because in my thoughts, zero means naught. And if there's no carbon at all plants are going to die, which means vegans are going to have to make a will. Pretty sharpish. I just want to know how true that is. Thank you.
Well, that's a question that many people might want to ask. And as Norman points out, carbon in the atmosphere is fundamental to the continuation of life on Earth. Without it, there would be no carbon-based life on the planet, and humans are carbon-based life too. Now, the key to that question is the use of the word net in net zero. This is used in the accounting sense, like your net income after tax. In that, the planet itself and all the living things on it use and emit carbon. And the assumption is that without human use of fossil fuels, that so-called naturally occurring carbon usage and emission is always balanced, i.e. that the natural emissions by the earth, plants and animals are always equally balanced by carbon settling into the earth and being used to grow new plants and animals. Therefore, with no human fossil fuel input, the level of carbon in the atmosphere would always be within a very narrow range, neither going up nor down, says the argument. There would always be carbon in the atmosphere to maintain life, but it would always be at the same level, or so they argue. And that is the net zero bit. Net zero being an equilibrium of carbon in the atmosphere. Now, the level of carbon in the atmosphere has been rising at an average of about 1.7 parts per million per year for decades, although that has increased slightly in the recent years. And scientists say they have worked out that it is totally down to man's use of certain fuel sources that is doing this. Now, the UK has really ratcheted down on its greenhouse gas emissions, with a government report in March last year saying between 1990 and 2021, UK territorial carbon dioxide emissions decreased by 47.7%. 47.7% lower. But atmospheric carbon levels still keep going up, despite the UK levels dropping so much. In fact, worldwide CO2 levels have gone up by 17.5% in that same time frame of 1990 to 2021. So what the scientists are saying is that man must reduce its carbon emissions to bring the planet back into atmospheric carbon equilibrium. But this means that by the time we get to net zero, the carbon level in the atmosphere might be as high as 500 parts per million. And if we reach net zero, and it works, with 500 parts per million in the atmosphere, then it will remain at 500 parts per million. That's how net zero works. And if it doesn't work, carbon levels will keep increasing. At the moment, it's just above 420 parts per million in the atmosphere. And 60 years ago, in 1963, it was at a level of about 320 parts per million. So it's gone up by about 100 parts per million in the last 60 years. Now, a lot has been said about reaching an irreversible tipping point, a point where nothing we can do will ever stop the planet overheating and killing everything. And eco-alarmists say that we're just about there today. But if we're approaching that level, as climate alarmists claim, then surely in future we are going to have to embark on a carbon net negative path to bring the carbon levels back down to a safe level to prevent the risk of an accidental tipping point incident, like a sudden large volcano eruption, for example. Surely net zero won't be enough. Think about the ramifications of going net negative carbon. Now, the one big question that no one's answering is, what is the optimum level for carbon in our atmosphere? Surely that is the one figure that every climatologist can instantly regurgitate and agree upon. If not, why not? but I never see any talk about what that number actually is. Although I do have the suspicion that net negative will be the next big push. That is, if those net zero plans work in the first place. And now for another viewer's question on a most serious topic.
It's Lee from Devon. I'd like to ask a question. Is it true? I can't do it. Is it true that Rishi Sunak is the same size as Kermit the Frog?
Well, Lee from Devon, Rishi might be the same size as Kermit the Frog, but he's nowhere near as influential or famous. I mean, even Boris Johnson, when he was PM, had to channel Kermit in a climate speech to the UN, didn't he? Now, don't forget to leave us your question on 07999 297 611, and we might play it out and answer it on the show. Well, despite all the doom and gloom claims from the Remoaners, it looks like the Brexit UK economy isn't in as bad a shape as they would have you believe. Last month, the UK economy actually grew. Yes, I know it was only by 0.1%, but it grew. If it was a 0.1% contraction, the Remoaners would be all over it in their usual manner. Now, the UK economy contracted during the third quarter, and everyone assumed that we were already in a recession. But to be in an official recession, the country has to have 2 consecutive quarters of contraction. Now, based on these latest ONS figures, to get that, we'd need to see the UK economy shrink by 0.6% in the 1 month of December. So there is a fair chance we might not go into a technical recession. But given that much of November's performance was based on the money spent during the World Cup and that inflation still looks high, don't bet against a sluggish start to the new year. The FTSE 100, however, does seem to be taking the new year in its stride, having trended up since the year started. However, how much of this is down to the January effect is unclear. The January effect is based on the hypothesis that stock markets rise in January more often than in any other single month. And no one seems to have properly worked out why, and if it's actually real. Many reasons have been put forward, but none seem to really explain it. But whatever, both the FTSE 100 and the 250 are doing nicely at the moment. And some pundits are arguing that investors are now looking past our current financial problems that have already been priced in. But that safe haven commodity, gold, is also increasing in value, although gold prices are driven by more than just market volatility. So anyway, it's not all doom and gloom, but just beware of false dawns. Anyway, now over to Richard for his thought of the day.
Thank you, Jeff. And hello, everyone. How are you? I hope you're doing well. And how disingenuous was that? Anyway, here we go. So, have you noticed that in the past few years, there's this creeping sort of micro virtue signal that each of us has to do when it comes to approaching the subjects of racism and different types of phobias, we'll say. Instantly, you have to say, I have various friends who are very close to me who have different skin tones to myself. Yeah, I'm so not racist. Okay, whatever. But this is something that has really wrapped itself around our society, this self-consciousness of needing to justify oneself continuously. And where did it come from? Well, obviously, we know where it comes from. It comes from the liberal left trying to impose their woke agenda on us, where we are constantly conscious of our differences between ourselves and other people. Why? Why do we have to do it? Why? You know, all of a sudden people start going, oh my goodness, well, perhaps they are different to us. because of their skin tone and their cultural background. Oh, and perhaps they do have a different history. Oh, darling, they really are different to us, you know. That's how it's going to manifest, is in people starting to create, well, like it's creating division and people starting to perceive difference, which there wasn't before. It's almost like eating of a tree of the knowledge of difference. Yeah, anyway, okay, so I don't want to be going over that too much because I don't see difference. Yeah, I see micro instances of difference between people. Of course, if somebody's shorter than you or taller than you, you're going to perceive a difference in that respect. But to make it such a thing. And don't get me wrong, listen, I hate racism, true racism. I've stood up against racism. Here I go, here's me, instantly. Look at this, look at me. I'm instantly trying to justify how not racist I am by what I've done in the past. Actually, I'm not even going to tell you about what I have done. Fantastic, I became instantly a victim of my own bullshit there. Brilliant. There you go, but that's my point. That's my point. We're always trying to justify ourselves. Come on, people, wakey, wakey. Okay, on to Journalist of the Day. And actually, let's just start. We've got two Rebeccas. We've got Rebecca Lawrence from the Daily Mail. And again, this is nothing against the journalists. It's their job to report on these things. And I personally think that this is not important, and it is a diversionary tactic on behalf of the media and the editorials. But then again, whatever. But here we go. If you tell me if you think this is important and vital, that it should take up, good space on the sort of front of newspapers or whatever they're called now. Okay, Kanye West is married. Musician ties knot with Yeezy designer in private ceremony 2 months after Kim divorce. And his new bride is the spitting image of his ex-wife. Oh, I say. Well. Well, at least he's got a type. But anyway, my point is, who cares? Who cares? All right, next one. And we've got another Rebecca here. We got Rebecca Cook in the Daily Mirror. Again, I'm sure you're a lovely person. And it's your job to do this. Okay, here we go. Check this headline out. Are you ready? Here we go. Emmerdale couple torn apart as fans rumble Caleb's true undercover identity in Kyle twist. If that means something to you and you understand what that's all about, great. Well done. Well done. Yeah. Okay. And I think I'm just going to leave it there. Look, it's a funny old world, isn't it? And I just want to share some of these thoughts with you because I know that some of you share the same thoughts as me. And we need to be able to communicate these things together. And that's one of the things we'll be doing with this channel. Is trying to create a bit more sort of interaction. There's no us and them. There's not you and whoever or whatever. It's just us. Just us. Anyway, you look after yourselves, all right? And God bless you.
Thank you, Richard. And finally, when subscribing, please don't forget to press that little bell and also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the show.